I was sitting in my car when the call came. Engine off, hands steady, breath measured. 4 years after they erased me, my son needed blood. Rare blood. No one in her family matched. I did. 6 hours of highway later, I lay under fluorescent lights, arm extended, watching crimson thread into a bag that carried my name. I didn't ask questions. I already knew the answers. The doctor did not. She compared our files twice, then a third time. Her face drained of color. She stopped breathing for a second too long and reached for the phone. "Security," she whispered. Then louder, "Police." I smiled into the ceiling and waited for the truth to detonate. They said I was dangerous. My father-in-law said it calmly, like a man reading weather. He wore a tailored suit and a smile that never touched his eyes. He told the judge I was unstable, that my silence was proof, that my love was obsession. He laughed afterward, not loud, surgical. "He'll forget you exist," he said, leaning close enough that I smelled mint. Children are adaptable. I lost custody that day, not because of evidence, because of influence. My wife didn't look at me as they led me out. She stared at her hands like they were foreign objects. I learned later that silence was her signature. Before the courtroom, there were mornings, pancakes shaped like stars, my son falling asleep on my chest, fist tangled in my shirt like an anchor. I used to measure time in his breaths. They called that bond a threat. I noticed the first crack months later. Medical forms arrived with errors. My son's blood type was wrong. Then school documents listed a genetic history that wasn't hers. I asked once, politely. I was told to move on. Pain doesn't make you reckless, it makes you precise. I started collecting. Nothing dramatic. Receipts, emails, calendar discrepancies, a pattern of signatures that appeared where consent never existed. I hired a forensic accountant and paid in cash. I learned how trusts talk to courts and how lies leave residue. My father-in-law was a man who confused silence with weakness. He'd built an empire on favors and buried ledgers. I mapped them all. Shells feeding shells. Charities laundering reputation. Judges who liked vacations. I didn't touch him. I waited. 4 years is a long time to be underestimated. When the hospital called, I didn't hesitate. Not for revenge, for him. My blood was the only match because it was always meant to be. The nurse thanked me. The doctor stared at the screen. The police arrived quietly. The revelation landed in 8 words, spoken with clinical disbelief. He was never their son. He was mine. DNA doesn't negotiate. The room tilted. Phones rang. My ex-wife collapsed into a chair like her bones had resigned. My father-in-law arrived last, furious that anyone dared summon him. He demanded explanations. He demanded silence. He didn't get either. Perjury has a sound when it breaks. It's a dry snap, like old wood. The court transcripts resurfaced. His sworn statements. His insistence on danger. The DNA timestamped every lie. Then the financials rolled in. Emergency audits triggered by a trust he forgot I knew existed. One I'd quietly acquired voting rights to after he forged my consent years earlier. By Monday morning, his board convened, not to save him, to survive him. Who just destroyed the man who owned everything, the one he erased? The confrontation wasn't loud. It never needed to be. He stared at me across a polished table, eyes finally afade. "You planned this," he said. I nodded. "You planned first." Charges followed. Custody reversed. Assets frozen. Friends evaporated. My ex-wife tried to speak. I listened. I always had. But some silences are final. I sat beside my son as he slept, monitors humming like a promise kept. He squeezed my finger, not because he remembered, because he felt safe. That was enough. I didn't take everything from them, just the lies, just the power they borrowed. Justice doesn't scream. It waits, then it speaks once. They said he'd forget me. They were wrong. I never forgot them either.